Hello and welcome to the 2022 OASF AGM. I'm Matt Dean and this is Jim Booth.
Evening, everybody.
We're around the boardroom table, which comprises of two in reality. In virtual reality, we have, as I see them on the screen, Bradley Knowles. Give us a wave, Brad.
Hi, everyone.
Darren Mills.
Evening.
Paul Whitehead.
Hello.
And Dom Lowe.
Hi, everyone.
So that's the full house of current directors, myself, Jim and Brad being the directors that were elected last year, and Darren, Paul and Dom have been co-opted and helping us out magnificently over the last year or so. Jim, you're the chair. You've got the agenda. Fire away.
Yeah, welcome, everybody. It's going to be quite a brief agenda. Sorry for not circulating it in advance, but initially we're going to recap the last year, all the key achievements that we've had. Then we're going to run quickly through the accounts, what conversion to a CBS means, and then Darren Mills is going to talk a little bit about being on the club board because he's been nominated to be our director on the club board. And then we're going to discuss the current situation with the new owners of the club. And finally, we're going to go over what's next for the Supporters Foundation.
Nice one, Jim. So we're kicking off with a recap of the year then.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a rocky start because, you know, as most of the members will know, a lot of the incumbent board when we started resigned immediately upon us starting. And then a bit further into the year, we had some more resignations. So everyone who's currently on the board has been on the board for a year or less. The first thing that we did, myself and Darren, was we looked at some of the policies that were in place that seemed quite restrictive, namely the social media policy, because nobody was allowed to post anything, so we couldn't communicate with anybody. We looked at that. We looked at a few other things and just freed ourselves up a little bit to get some work done. And I think we have got some work done.
We brought online a lot of new software and systems and bought a bit of tech, didn't we? Some laptops and things like that. We just gave ourselves some point of sale gear to raise money. There was quite a few things like that administratively that we brought in.
The foundation wasn't really geared up to do things. I know that sounds really sharp, but we didn't have any way of taking payments from people. Our policies were too restrictive. The website, even though it was a new website and it was already being rolled out at the point that we came on board, it was just a copy of another website. So we have to.
There was a lot of work to do on it.
We have to do a lot of tweaking on it to make it fit what we actually wanted to do. But anyway, on from that, the website worked out quite well. I think it's not exactly what we wanted it to be, but we are constantly working on it. Every month we send a list of updates that we want to the provider of that, and we've managed to raise over £75,000 through combination of donations through the website and directly into the 1895 fund as well. That's largely come from people just donating, but a significant portion of it also came from the Fans versus Legends match, which I think is probably the biggest event that the Trust / Foundation has ever done. And I really enjoyed it. Brought so many of the fans together. And at the time, you know, a lot of people didn't know that we were imminently about to be taken over. And there was just a feel about the whole event for me. It just felt like this is it. We're turning the corner. Everyone's come together. And this is where things are going to change. Little did we know that it was going to change within, 72 hours of that happening, but it did.
It was a very good event, wasn't it? What we all did put on. I don't think any of us watched any of the match because we were so busy on the day, weren't we?
Yeah. I mean, it took a long time to get it organised, a very long time, and a lot of hours. But I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a really, really good day.
I think it's probably worth highlighting as well. It's a really good example of the foundation working alongside PTB as a joint venture to coordinate, because we wouldn't be able to do it by ourselves. And I think historically those two groups perhaps hadn't have been working together, but we've tried really hard to work alongside them. So I think that's worth noting.
And the same goes for the fans forum as well at the OEC. You know, there's been lots, not just between Push the Boundary and OASF, just in general. Just the fan base has really, really turned up.
Yeah.
And I think that the spike in crowds and everything that's gone with it has been part of the process. I think as fans, the end of the Lemsingham era, we can all hold our heads up and be proud of ourselves. I think it's been a real turnaround.
Yeah, absolutely. The fans versus legends match raised a lot of money, and that was, that was the aim of it. It was to raise money initially, but byproduct of that was, everyone had a really good time, and everyone came out of it feeling like we could actually make something happen. And what we took from that was like Darren said, working together with other fans groups such as PTB, which I know previous people who were at OASF were quite reluctant to do. It really highlighted to us that fans working together is the way forward, and that's why we initiated the process to start off the Fans Council. So if we've missed anybody out, please let us know. But if you want to represent a group of fans, all you need to do is get in contact with us and say, I represent this group of fans, and we would like to nominate these people, put them on the Fans Council. We get together, we discuss what we think is important, what needs to come next, ideas, issues, anything like that, and it all gets fed back into the club. So we're giving people a voice rather than just acting as your voice, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not, the agenda is set by the fans, and whatever you feel you need as a fan in a particular demographic, then that's what that's for. And I think, all right, skipping ahead a little bit in terms of the next steps, but the Fans Council is an opportunity for people to start getting involved without taking on the responsibility of becoming a director of OASF. But by getting involved in the Fans Council and getting involved in that side of things, hopefully what we'll start doing is bringing co-optees in, like Dom, Paul and Darren, to get some experience and then feed those kinds of people into OASF. So there is some kind of system of like an academy in a way, but that's kind of what we need. We don't want people coming in at the last minute, like we did, really, because we felt that it needed, and there wasn't enough people on the board and all that. So, this is all part. We will come on to next steps, but this is part of that longer term vision for what our legacy, I guess, in terms of what we want to leave behind us when we're finished on the board.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that we should really note from the last year is when we were initially elected, myself, Matt and Brad, we had somewhere in the region of 300 to 400 members. Over the last year, that's climbed to nearly 1,400. So, hopefully that means that people like what we've been doing. And please continue to sign up, because the more members we've got, the bigger our voice is when we're speaking to the club and other parties. It strengthens our hand a little bit. And moving on from that, that historically throughout the latter years of Abdallah's reign, we didn't have someone appointed to the position on the board for the Supporters Foundation. We've nominated Darren to do that, so hopefully he gets elected, or it's been a big waste of time. But Darren, do you want to tell us a little bit about we'll move into the present now. Just tell us a little bit about your experience, because I know that you've had a couple of meetings and a couple of discussions with the current board of the club.
Yeah, so obviously I'm going through the process at the moment of the owners and directors test. So the paperwork's been completed and submitted to the league, and all that has to go through and be approved. So we're just waiting for that. So not attended any formal board meetings as of yet, but both the two, since my nomination, there's been two held, and the club have been really good in communicating when they're happening, give me an update on the paperwork and its progression. So by the sound of it, should be able to attend the next one in November. But what I have been able to attend was a purposing day. So that was held at the OEC, run by Kevin Roberts, who's one of the gentlemen that's joined the board new, who's very experienced in business, PepsiCo, Saatchi & Saatchi, and that was all about what the club's trying to achieve, and how we get there. So, you might have heard of like visioning and objectives and stuff like that. It's another It's another way of looking at that. The key thing that I think people will be relieved to hear is that, you know, the key activity that the club is interested in is about winning football matches. So that comes down to obviously the playing squad, but all the stuff around there, the infrastructure. What's again good to hear is the issues that, you know, people might have witnessed on match days, so things around, you know, safety around the ground and the surrounding areas, issues with the PA that we had at weekend and stuff like that. They're all being flagged and highlighted, and they're on a list of things that need working through. And really, the club is very open with us in terms of recognising, you know, what stuff needs improving, listening to us when we feed back to them, and taking that away. But also keen to sort of stress, you know, I think these things take time and there's a lot to do and there's limited people to do those things. So I think, yeah, it's really refreshing. It's obviously a big change from previous ownership. You know, if we call and ask for a meeting, we'll get one booked in and we'll get dates. That happens pretty quick. And, you know, Darren Royal's very happy to meet us, speak to us and get our feedback, which is just immensely refreshing compared to the previous owners, as you can imagine.
Yeah, and we spoke to him last night and we penciled in, well, we will be penciling in meetings for 2023, regular monthly meetings. And I just want to say, Darren, on behalf of, I think probably on behalf of the board and certainly myself, and it should be on behalf of the fans and members, thanks for putting yourself forward for that position, because looking back historically, it's not been a position that has been enjoyed particularly. I don't think by the people who've taken it on. It's they've had a lot of grief
on some occasions, maybe a bit too much.
Well,
maybe enjoyed a bit too much.
Maybe it's been a bit up and there, hit and miss. But you know, it's a big challenge. It's a difficult job. So thanks for taking it on, and like we're behind you. And I think the main thing to take from it is we have all learned a lot, and we've discussed all this a lot, like amongst ourselves and with the club as well, in terms of lessons learned from the previous experiences of other OASF reps on the board, and hopefully this time it'll be as valuable an asset to us and the club as it should be. So cheers, Darren.
Yeah, and I think like I appreciate for some of the members, I'm probably not the most well known of the other directors. My background in HR, you know, I have advised boards and challenged boards around what they're doing and why they're doing it, and that's what I'm hoping to bring to this role. You know, it isn't a mouthpiece. There is obviously some difficulties with that role, just in the nature of it. So you've got your director duties to the club and the director duties to the foundation. So it's a balancing act. But what I will say is, you know, I like to think of myself as a man of integrity, and if I find myself in a compromising position, then I'll step back away from that role.
Well, cheers, mate, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Should we just mention the questions situation, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, we did get some questions, most of them from the same person, but since they link into some of the agenda items, what we'll do is when we discuss those agenda items, we'll cover off the questions relating to that at that point. I think that's probably the most efficient way to do it. So next on the agenda is to cover off the accounts, and Paul Whitehead is our resident expert. So if you'd like to just give him a quick summary of the accounts, and I know that there were a few questions around that. So if you've got those questions to hand, I know that you answered them in advance. So
yep,
read out the answers too.
Will do. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, just to point out, obviously, that the accounts are prepared up to the end of January 2022. Which is our year end. So some of the things that Jim has already mentioned around the Fans Legends game and some of the fundraising that's happened over the last 6 to 8 months isn't included in these accounts, but obviously will be included in next year's accounts. I mean, I think the year was, as Jim's mentioned, also characterised really by a sort of mass resignation of the previous board when the first election was held, or the election last year was held, and the current board members were appointed. So if you look at the accounts, you'll see on the directors page there's quite a few resignations and quite a few appointments, and that's not been unusual, unfortunately. In previous years, we've been in a similar situation. I think what has changed since the new board was appointed was obviously a massive ramping up in terms of activity, fundraising activity, and obviously that to some extent was caused by a continued deterioration in the relationship between the club and its fan base under the previous regime, and obviously we found ourselves relegated at the end of last season. So we did ramp up significantly in terms of fundraising, and we went from a position where in the previous financial year we raised only £300 thereabouts to this year up to the end of January, when we raised up almost £23,000 from donations and other activity. Obviously, some costs went up as a result of that, and Matt's already talked about the need to make ourselves more professional in terms of our approach. And so we've invested in the website, we've invested in some tech and Microsoft Office and things like that. So expenditure did go up, but nevertheless, we went from a position of losing almost £1,000 last year to actually making a surplus this year of 13.5. Unfortunately, that does mean that there is a tax liability on that as a company limited by guarantee, and I'm not going to steal Dom's thunder on CBS conversion, but if that is successfully voted through, we'll be able to mitigate some of those tax losses in the future, as some of the activity, fundraising activity, won't be taxable. Some of it still will, trading activity generally will, but where it's donations and other things, then that will limit the tax. So at the end of the year, we did have a healthy bank balance than we had previously. We had just over £24,500 in the bank. Of that, almost £22,000 was ring fenced for what is now known as the 1895 fund. That's not specifically set out in the accounts, so that is a figure that I've been asked to provide, and that was the figure at the end of January. The exact figure was £21,829. The accounts, as you're probably aware, were submitted to Companies House in advance of this AGM, and whereas in previous years the AGM has actually approved the accounts, there's absolutely no requirement for the AGM to approve the accounts. All that the Companies Act says is that the accounts must be laid before the AGM, so that's why they were circulated prior to the meeting, but they were submitted in good time to Companies House. They were approved, obviously, by the board, not actually a formal board meeting, but again, the board has the authority to approve things through other means, and that's the way we did it this year. So they have been approved by all board members through electronic means and have been submitted. As I say, a much healthier picture. It'll be even healthier next year, obviously, as a result of the Fans Legends game. I mean, we're up to a figure of in the 70,000s now, so it's gone up by about that's £50,000 or so in the last 8 or 9 months, and obviously fundraising activity will continue because we do still have a job to do, even though obviously the club is now in much better hands than it was when we began to do that fundraising. So that's a quick overview of the accounts. A much better year than previous years. Hopefully some stability on the board moving forward, and we can continue to post reasonable financial returns and build up that 1895 fund and work with the club to decide what that is spent on or invested into the club in some other way through perhaps an increased percentage on the 3% that we already own. But those discussions still need to take place. So, yeah, that's an overview. Back to you, Chair.
Thanks, Paul. Very informative. And now we'll move on to the conversion to CBS, which is one of the things that it's in with the election questions. We want you to vote. We need our members to confirm that they're happy with us to change into a community benefit society. So I'll let Dom cover that off because he's done a lot of the background work on that.
Thanks, Jim. So yeah, as has already been alluded to by Paul, one of the sort of main issues we've had with being so successful is that we've generated quite a lot of tax liability. One of the options that we started looking at, Paul started looking at when we first identified that, was how we could change our company structure to better suit the kind of work that we were doing, which then reflects our tax liability. So we have, and members might remember, Paul and I, quite early on when I first started on the board, I think it was around April, May time, went to Birmingham. We were invited to go to Birmingham by Cooperatives UK, Andy Burnham, and the Football Sports Association, to the Cooperatives UK conference, where we talked a lot about our situation, where we are, where we were at the time, and what we were trying to do in terms of raising money. But we, through that, we built quite good relationships with Cooperatives UK and the Football Sports Association. We spoke to them about our plans in terms of a community benefit society. It's a legal form that the Football Sports Association recommend as best practice for sports trust now. So it's something we've been looking into for a while and been working quite closely with the Football Sports Association and Cooperatives UK. Both been providing free advice on this, and we'll be providing further contributions to legal advice on this moving forward as well. So as Jim says, we're asking a question because this is ultimately up to members as to whether we do convert to a community benefit society or not. So the question is fairly simple: do you want to convert the Sports Foundation into a community benefit society? So I'll run through a bit about why we think this is a good idea, and then obviously it's up to you as to which way you want to vote on that. So what is a community benefit society? First of all, as I say, it's a legal form for companies, but it's particularly aimed at companies which serve a particular community. In our case, our community is you, Oldham Athletic supporters, and the wider town as well. What would the benefits be for us in terms of being a community benefit society? Well, we've already touched on the tax aspect. At the moment, we're subject to corporation tax, which is at 19% at the moment, but we'll be going up to 25%. That means we're not able to keep all your donations. So all the fundraising work we're doing, we're taking with one and we're losing a little bit every time. Conversion to a community benefit society, as Paul said, and in much more informative way than I could express, would give us access to some tax relief, which would help. But it also gives us access to other types of funding as well. So there's government grants that are available to community organisations with these types of legal forms. A good example is the Community Ownership Fund, which is running at the moment, which gives community organisations access to up to £1 million of match funding for getting ownership of community assets that are at risk. So at least before the takeover, we were seriously considering whether we needed to apply for that funding to safeguard Boundary Park. Hopefully we won't need to do that, but it's having this conversion would give us access to that sort of thing in the future. And there may be other types of grant funding that becomes available that might be of use to us. Another thing is we get the opportunity to do what's called a community share offer, where we'd be essentially selling shares, in Sports Foundation to raise money for us all to buy a bigger share in the club. But one of the other key things, which is a bit technical, really, is a statutory asset lock as well that comes along with being a community benefit society, which basically gives us greater legal protection for the things that the foundation owns and the assets that we have. So essentially our 3% shareholding in the club, which wouldn't go away if we converted, we'd still keep that. It'd just have greater legal protection. We wouldn't be able to give it away in the same way that we feasibly could do now. And for the 1895 fund as well, it limits what we can spend our funds on as well. It has to be for the benefit of our community, in this case Oldham Athletic fans. So what does that mean then for Sports Foundation if this goes through? how will things change? So essentially, not a great deal that you'll see up front will change. A lot of the ways we work now are pretty similar to the ethos and the principles of a community benefit society. Will still be member driven, but in this case, it will be baked in to our rules. Members will have a greater say in the way that things work. We'll still have elected board members. It'll still be one member, one vote. But every member of Oldham Athletic Sports Foundation will also hold a share in the society as well. One share, one member, one vote. So we will be using the Financial Conduct Authority's model rules for our new rules. So that includes charging a membership fee. So this will probably be the biggest change from where we are now. So at the moment there is no membership fee for the Sports Foundation, but in exchange for the share, there will have to be a membership fee. It will be again baked in to the legal structure. We will have to charge one. We haven't made any decisions, although we have considered a variety of options in terms of both the fee, but also what we're offering in return. But that's one of the first things that the new board will need to decide. We'll make sure that everyone gets prior notice, and we'll answer as many questions as anyone has, and everyone will be given the opportunity to opt out should they decide not to. But obviously, we encourage you to stick with us. We'll consider the level that it's set at, so it's not too high, the prices people out, but it's set at a level that allows us to meet our expenses, and also hopefully generate some additional income for the 1895 fund as well. So in terms of next steps, if the vote passes, we'll continue to work with Football Sports Association and Cooperatives UK to finalise the rules we've drafted with them based on those model rules that the Financial Conduct Authority have given us, who regulate community benefit societies, and then we'll submit them to the Financial Conduct Authority, who will then review and decide whether to approve them or not, and then we'll be registered if they do approve them with the Financial Conduct Authority. It will probably take, it will take at least 2 months, but it'll probably take 3 before that conversion happens. So in that time, the new board will consider the membership offer, and they'll make it available and publicise it to everyone. But that's the gist of it. If there are any further questions moving forward, you can always contact us, and we'll do our best to answer any of those questions as well. But yeah, back to you, Jim.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I think it's pretty imperative that we do make this change, because largely because of the tax implications. We don't want to be accepting money from people and then giving a chunk of it away.
A quarter of it.
Yeah, well, it will be. Yeah,
Yeah.
Once the rate increases, we give a quarter of it away. There's no point to doing that. And on top of that, we haven't charged a membership fee for a very long time, but it is historically we've always charged a membership fee. The reason that we haven't put that back in place is we could have done, because by the time we came on board, lockdown was kind of over. The reason we didn't implement that is we're getting a lot of donations, so it didn't seem right to sort of push people into giving us money, and the state that we were in when we started, it didn't really seem like a chargeable product to me personally, anyway. Yeah, thanks for that, Dom. A good roundup of what it means for us to convert into a CBS.
I was just going to add, sorry, I think the really key thing with the membership fee is it should cover our operating expenses, which at the moment we haven't, we've been doing it based on surplus, and we had the event right back at the start. Was it the website launch where we sort of took and publicised some of the money was going to our operating costs.
Yeah.
So by doing that, it means we can focus all that money that comes in on like fundraising, because we'll be covering our operating costs through the membership fee.
Yeah.
So it just seems like a sensible approach. Things like Microsoft 365 licenses. So we have 6 of them for the 6 of us at the moment. we're going to be increasing our directors, so that cost is automatically going to go up. I mean, it means we can put our focus where it should be in terms of fundraising and that side of things.
And if we need something, we need to be able to go get it. For example, when we did the fans versus legends match, we needed point of sale equipment. We needed to be able to take card payments in order to maximize the possibilities from the event. If we were too restrictive in our spending, we need to spend some money in order to facilitate getting the job done. And I know there's been some criticism early on when we bought laptops, etc. But it's required. If you want to run a professional business, you need equipment. It's a no-brainer. You can't run a business without having the equipment required to run that business.
Yeah, and we need money to make money, and the money in the 1895 fund is ring fenced. We can't use the money in the 1895 fund to spend to increase the money in the 1895 fund, but we will need to spend some money. In order to do that. So look, it's not just going to be down to members and membership fees. We are looking, and we'll cover it a bit later on, sponsorship and other commercial activities that we need to do that. Because like you said, donations aren't taxable, but other forms of income are. So we need to work all that out. We need to work out a business plan. But like Dom said, there was a comment in the on YouTube about that it seems like a bit of a no-brainer, and are there any downsides to it? And some members might think that paying a membership fee is a downside. And Dom, you said that we're limited to maybe what we can spend the money in the 1895 fund on, but really it's not really a downside because it was going to be spent like that anyway. So I don't really think there are, the membership fee is not really a downside, because
I see the restrictions as a positive more than anything else, because it means that, for example, I've only got 1 year left on my term. If I were to leave and someone were to come in, a few more board members were to come in and decide they wanted to spend the money on something that wasn't conducive to our aims, they wouldn't be able to do that as a CBS. It would be against the rules. So I think it's a good protection for the future, because we're all not going to be here forever. And we need to put that in place so that the next people that come in have got a good set of guidelines on, look, here's how you should do things. Just continue on with this. So I don't see that as a downside either. Maybe the fee,
well,
to some people, especially at the current time.
Yeah.
But we're not going to set it a ridiculous
No.
price. Don't worry, it's not going to be like $15.99 a month or something.
I mean, the thing is, as well, is the more members we have. I mean, if we've got 3,000 members, I know we haven't got that yet, but we're in the region of half that. But if we could get it up to 3,000 members, that would be, and if we charged £1 a month, be £3,000 a month. Which way exceeds our operating costs. Yeah, and it's £1 a month. So again, it comes down to the more people there are signing up, getting involved, the easier the burden is on everybody, and that's ultimately why it's important. I know on the agenda, Jim, we've got what's next written on the end, but I think maybe if we come on to what's next now and then finish on where we're at, then, because we're kind of leading into that already. With what's next. I mean, just because obviously we're all delighted that the club has changed hands and that it's so much more secure than it was, but that doesn't make our role or our position any less important. In fact, it's just as important as it was before. The failings of previous incarnations of the trust have been not to keep their eye on the ball when things have looked good. And then when things turn sour, you're not prepared, or we're not prepared. And we all have to take a collective responsibility in that as a fan base. It's no point pointing a finger at anybody who's been on the trust board before or anything like that, because they have at least had the wherewithal to step up and do it. But as a collective, we've not maintained our focus. But we've learned a lot of lessons now. So we need to keep that focus on. It won't always be guaranteed that the club is safe. And so we need to build a business plan, and looking at us as a CBS, as a business, excuse me, means that we need a business plan. We need targets, we need strategies, we need more board members, we need more volunteers. At this point, I would like to personally thank Dom, Paul and Darren, because without you three, we would be we just wouldn't be where we are now. You've been absolutely fantastic, absolutely brilliant. Like getting into all the nitty gritty with the CBS stuff, the kind of stuff that just just sends me to sleep. You know, like the whole point of having a board is that we all bring a different skill set to that board, and that we trust each other to get on and do these things. And that's what's happened over this last year or so. Everyone's just done their own job, done it really well, and we're moving forward. So thank you very much for your efforts over the last year. I also like to special mention to Rob and Alison, who helped out with the EGM. Brad, maybe you just give us a quick overview on how the election process has been and what kind of what Rob and Alison have brought to the party.
Yeah, so it's been a pretty straightforward one. So we asked for 7 candidates. We've got 7 candidates. So I don't know if people have looked at, you're still able to vote until 9 o'clock tonight. So go ahead and do that. So we've got Mark. I'm trying to think of the names now. We've got obviously the 3 on here. We've got Darren, Dom, Morris.
It's Mark Morris and Mick. It's all the Micks, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's all the M's.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Yeah,
Mark Morris and
exactly,
Mick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
We've got Gary as well, who's on there. So they've all submitted. What the job of the EGM was to do was to look through and vet all the candidates, make sure that the members were proposing them. So the first and the second one. I think someone did put it on Twitter that I think one of the candidates didn't. That was just a mistake. He was proposed by 2 people. He was just missed off on the form. But yeah, we set up an election runner, put all the questions in there, and I think I'm not going to give it away, but I think everyone should be fine. Go ahead and yeah, like you said, you got till 9 o'clock tonight, still vote and vote on the CBS. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward, to be fair, because we thought at one point we might have to do hustings, and we thought, oh, what does that involve? So we had to Google it a bit, and we had Andy on standby to host it and stuff like that. But I'm glad we didn't have to do that. So it's just seven in, and like I said, these 3 have been co-opted. There's no reason why people who thought that they might want to join in can come to us and say, I'll give it a try and be co-opted onto the board.
I would encourage that in the future, as a way, we were talking about this before, Jim, as a way in, like an academy. We said before, volunteer your time, get to know us, get to know some of the things that need to be done, then be co-opted onto the board and then run for the election. That's the better way. And I think it's better that we all have a working relationship. We understand how things work with each other within the dynamic, because like the board in the past has had a lot of issues, a lot of conflicting opinions. It's kind of been its own worst enemy in some cases. So we want to try and find ways that stop that happening. It's learning lessons from things that have gone on in the past. And also just as a good side on Rob, what's his full name? I've forgotten. Robbie from Blackpool Supporters Trust.
Yeah, Paul, you probably know, won't you?
I just know him as Robbie.
Just Robbie from Blackpool.
Yeah.
But it's Robbie.
Yeah.
Robbie. But Paul, you helped Blackpool Supporters Trust out, didn't you, with their election?
I did, yeah.
And you were on their EGM, and now Robbie's come out and helped us out. So I think obviously Blackpool Supporters Trust were fantastic with us through our fundraising, through all our issues, and I just think it's really nice that that these kind of things then filter through into some of these sort of practicalities and being able to help each other out. So I just think in terms of like involvement and people getting involved and helping out and getting stuck in, I think it's been a really positive year, and I can only see with the Fans Council and all the other stuff, these kind of things getting better and better.
I would fully recommend start out by volunteering, then co-op. That's what, is it all 3 of you have done that? You all volunteered to do a single specific thing, and then it sort of expanded out from there, because from personal experience, I wouldn't recommend coming into it cold, like me, Matt and Brad did. And myself and Darren have done our best to try to sort of make it more easy to understand when you come in. We've had a lot of firefighting to do. I think the process kind of got abandoned a little bit, but the idea is we want to make it nice and simple. Someone steps in and says, and we were able to say, look, here's what we're doing, here's how you can help, and present them with the information that they need, which is something that we didn't really get, and it was quite hard to just step into the role especially in the situation that we've been in over the past, not the current few months, but the 12 months prior to that. So I definitely recommend, if you want to get involved, just tell us, come to a meeting. We've had a few people come to meetings over the course of the last year and just give us advice on specific things. And if it expands from there, it expands from there. And if that's all the involvement you want, then that's also fine and very much appreciated.
Yeah, and I think that, like, in terms of that, like coming in cold and firefighting, like, obviously we've not had that much time, although we've actually done a lot to improve a lot of the sort of ways of working within, the way that we feel that suit us better, and we feel is more, he's better going forward, and we've done a lot of that. At the same time, we've not really had time to focus on our long-term objectives and really set out a vision, in like a proper vision for OASF going forward, and how we see that fitting into the football club. And now we've got a clean slate we've got a clean slate with everything, haven't we? Really, we've got a larger membership. We've got a new board to deal with. At the football club, we've got new directors coming onto this board. We've got a really clean slate. We're starting off as a CBS. I would really like, over the next 12 months, to spend a lot more time focusing on how this organisation is going to evolve, how it's going to improve, and how it's going to contribute to the long-term survival, benefit, prosperity of Oldham Athletic. And I think that's really exciting. So I think if you've thought about getting involved, I think this coming year, now that we've got more directors, we'll be able to do more. The more volunteers that are there to assist directors, because I think what you have to remember about this organisation is we're directors. That doesn't mean we have to do all the work. It only means we have to do all the work if nobody else steps forward to help us out. Like, the board of Oldham Athletic don't do all the work. They're the directors. They direct and make sure that everything's on track. And that's the way that this organisation should work. In the past, we've only had very, very small numbers of people. And no wonder people in the past have been overwhelmed, and, it's difficult. It really is. So the more people that help us out, the better it'll be, the more money we'll raise, and hopefully the more influence we'll have at the football club, because I think that is ultimately what we would all like. We'd like to invest in the club, we'd like to help the club, and we'd like to have more involvement in making sure that the experience for us as fans is as good as it can be. So for me, it's been a fantastic year, but the year ahead and the next 5 year ahead are even more exciting.
Definitely. I'd add to that, Matt, because obviously we've had seen a few criticism where it's like jobs from the boys and stuff like that. We've not handpicked any of these. We've not put anyone forward. Even when we came to it, we don't know each other, did we, before this process?
No.
And like I said, if you are I'm trying to get involved and stuff like that, email us, come to us, and we're more than happy to, like Jim said, invite you to a meeting and see if you fancy it or not. I think we had about 3 or 4 different people turn up to board meetings throughout the year, saying if they fancied it or not, and some people didn't, and obviously some people did. That's why we had people who were eventually co-opted on. But yeah, like I said, all the new people, we don't know them, and we hope that they bring great skill, because obviously we've been working on a very limited basis. As all the Boundary Park Alert System podcasts, when they've introduced us, they've been at around 10 max. So we believe now that we should be able to work as an efficient board now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's not about all having the same opinions either. It's about being able to disagree and compromise constructively, and that's what it's all about. We don't want everybody to be on the board who has the same experiences as we have, who has the same outlook as we have, the same views. That would be useless. It's about respect, and it's about understanding where everybody's coming from and working together. And we've disagreed over plenty of stuff, but we find a solution, we find a compromise in the end, and we move forward. So what a year. I mean, really, I'll blow our trumpet for a bit. I think we've done absolutely brilliantly. I think it's been the circumstances that we've been under, the situation with the club. I think the work, the hours we've put in, as a board, I'm quite happy to sing our praises. And like I said before, I'm more than happy to to add to that all the other fans out there that got involved and did their part. I think we should be really proud of ourselves. I think we've made real progress.
Yeah, we definitely need to thank the number of volunteers we've had this year has been massive. You know, we've had the stadium cleanup when the new owners came in. We've had the fans versus legends match. There's multiple different events that we've run, and lots of different initiatives, such as the lottery. There's a volunteer running the lottery at the moment as well, and we've just had a really, really good response to asking for help. I would add to that I know that there was a skills audit early in our tenure, and I know that we've had a lot of people come to us or drop an email or just comment in passing that they submitted their information for the skills audit, but nobody's got in touch with them. We did have somewhere around the region of 200 people get in touch with us about the skills audit, and it wasn't a matter of us contacting all 200 people and saying, yeah, come and help out, because it'd be just a free-for-all. It'd be a mess. So the way that we're using it, the reason that it identified particular skills is because when we need something, we'll look on the skills audit, see who can help, and contact them. So if you haven't been contacted, it's not because we don't want your help. It's not because we're not interested. It's literally when we need something specific, we will go to the specific people that fit that requirement.
An example of sorry, Jim.
I was going to say largely because of time. We don't have time to pour through 200 responses. It's a great number of responses, but there's not that many of us.
Yeah, for example, though, we have been using the skills audit a few times. So, for example, the club has come to us twice for specific skills. I think one they gave for the driver. So we had a look through our skills audit if we had anyone like that, and nothing fit the bill. And I think, was it the painting as well? We had a look through that to see if anything could be fit on them skills. And again, it wasn't there. Like I said, we have got it there, and we are using it. And hopefully we can use it further for ourselves, and if the club need it, it is there for them as well.
Yeah, exactly.
We used it to identify our new lottery volunteer, for example. It came from the skills audit.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The fan base is full of really, really smart, really, really hardworking, really creative, really passionate, really qualified, skilled people. And now we're growing the board, and hopefully we're growing the volunteer base. We'll get there. Like I said, we've not really had a chance to do a lot of that kind of stuff and build our own organisation because we've been too busy, fighting fires. Again, doing the opposite of what we want to be doing, basically. Yeah. But now we're going into 2023 with a completely different outlook, a completely different agenda. So we can hopefully start to build that little army of volunteers and people helping out the club and OASF.
And we'll have time to plan out initiatives where they can actually be put to use, whereas before it was, like Matt said, just firefighting, not just externally. There's been a lot going on internally, hence the number of resignations. So it's not been easy.
No, it's not been easy, yeah. And things stay behind closed doors. Yeah.
And I would say it's been enjoyable. It's still been enjoyable.
Well, it has, yeah, but it's been stressful at times. Yeah. I just want to say it's Robbie Whittaker. Someone's posted there at Blackpool supporters. Just sorry, Robbie, because I think you usually think of you either by your Old When the Blues name or just as Robbie, Blackpool Supporters Trust. So thank you, Robbie, for helping out. Has anyone else got anything on like going forward? I mean, we do have other things like that we're thinking about. Well, obviously we will update you as we sort of start rolling out our plan. I don't know if there's anybody else on the screen that wants to say anything about that.
I guess just with the website, when we brought that in, we lost the documents that were on there, so we're looking to build them up with the CBS scheme. Hopefully that gets approved and that goes live. Our policies will be updated and they'll go on with that, so it's clear and everything's transparent in terms of how everything works and the policies that we hold ourselves against and that side of things. So.
Yeah, just one from me. I should have said when I did the accounts bit, I should have thanked Michelle Whitehead from Penguin Accountancy Services for putting together in a reasonable form, a readable form, what I presented her with, and also for doing the corporation tax calculation on our behalf. She's no relation. We're not related. There's far too many Whiteheads involved in this in various fan groups in this football club. So we've never actually met. We've only conversed by Teams and phone. So thanks to Michelle for all the work she did.
Good stuff. Thank you.
She's been very, very good. Given that our previous accountant did resign, so we did need the help. Is there anything else to cover off in the present? I know we've got the what's next, and we've covered a lot of that off. We are working on a line of merchandise because obviously, when things aren't terrible, it's a lot harder to get donations. So we're going to try to offer something. We're working on a line of merchandise in conjunction with the club, Push the Boundary, a few other parties. You'll see more on that soon. But we don't want to give too much away at the moment. But that we are working on some merchandise.
Yeah, I mean, it's about, we're only limited by our imagination, really. Like, there's so much stuff we can do. It's really exciting, and that's what we want to drive, isn't it? We want to create things, create opportunities. You can get a lot of, I mean, if you're not working or you're struggling and you want to get a better job, you could do a lot worse than getting involved with what we're doing and building up your skills and your experience and your CV. It's actually, we could spend a lot of time doing this and we don't get paid for it, but we get a hell of a lot of experience, and it really helps our career development, our professional development. So there's a lot to be gained from it. And if you've got an idea and you want to contribute, then get involved, because we won't turn anybody away. Like, everybody who's come to us and says we want to get involved, we've given them something to do.
Wouldn't even be allowed to turn anybody away. If you turn up with a good idea and you want to do it, you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll back you. We'll back you all the way.
Just answer, Jane Woods asked a question there about did we email members today, ask them how to join? Yeah, we did. So email went out this morning with the StreamYard links. I've just got the stats in front of me, so I can say sort of 50% of the people that were emailed have opened it and read that, which, you know, that was all our members. So 1,000+ members have had that email, and 50% have opened it.
And all this this meeting will be on YouTube after, and it'll be on Facebook after as well. So it's always going to be available for anyone to watch. And if you watched it and you really enjoyed it, you can watch it again, because you might have missed something last time, and
I won't be watching it back.
And I think
we need that.
It's been a learning experience for us, hasn't it? Because again, like, all being new, none of us had organised or put together an AGM. So like, yeah, there might be some learning from this, and looking at different ways of doing that for next year and all that sort of thing. So any feedback that people have, they're more than welcome to let us know, and we can take that on board.
Definitely.
Yeah, I've got some. We'll leave that. We'll leave that for after the meeting. Do we need to update? We had a conversation with the club yesterday, and they did tell us quite a few things, which is a refreshing change. So since people do ask us a lot, we should probably cover a little bit of it off. They are working a lot on maintenance of the stadium at the moment, and that's largely because it's not been maintained in the several years in the run up to the current ownership.
It's knackered.
Yeah.
It could be
essentially this. I won't go into too much particular detail, but there's a lot of electrical faults and it's basically health and safety issues that need to be focused on, and that's why they're spending money on it. It's not a case of choosing to spend money on the ground over the squad. It's a case of, if they don't do that, people won't be able to attend matches because they're not conforming to health and safety regulations. So if everyone could just bear that in mind, next time they show a picture of something that's been updated and repaired, complaining that the money's not being spent on the squad. If they don't do that, you can't go to the match, so it won't matter.
With the example they give, I think the example which we discussed yesterday was the steps, weren't they? Because obviously that got a lift of pain. Then we brought it up and said, oh, like, you were saying it looked good, and obviously people did complain about that on Twitter, like, so why is that being done? But then turn around and said it was a SAG requirement. So
yeah,
when you see things being done around the ground, it is for the safety of us and to make us better. And we don't obviously want any accidents around the stadium like that. And like I think somebody even mentioned about behind the Rochdale Road and to the north stand, that's been done. I think they said they put steps in now.
Yeah, they cleared a lot of the bushes that were sort of overhanging and stuff, and cleared the path away a bit and made a step. And there is a list there was a huge. What Darren said was there were issues of concern, but none that was like severe or serious, but just things that needed that needs to be addressed before it gets into a situation where it obviously does become severe. And there's been a neglect on the stadium for a long, long time. So I think this is something that, I mean, we've certainly tried to express on the podcast and stuff. Just a realization of just how desperately neglected and unloved the club has been in so many areas. It's been stripped of things, you know, positions, jobs, equipment. You know, there's been neglect on the landscape, on the stadium itself. There's all kinds of issues, and they're not just it's not all just going to come into place overnight. So there is a bit of patience required, and you know, if we ask a question, we get an answer, don't we?
Yeah,
we're not getting
the answer to that question was because obviously a lot of people were asking the question, and our job is to ask that question on your behalf. So that question was asked, and the answer was that those things need to be done. And not only do they need to be done, but the club have actually now appointed, or in the process of appointing, I'm not sure exactly where that's at, a stadium manager and 2 maintenance staff. They didn't have any of that. The previous owners didn't have that. They just brought someone in when something specifically went to the point where it couldn't be left any longer. Brought someone in to fix it. But they've got, you know, a team now dedicated to that role, which is progress. It's not the kind of progress that's tangible on the pitch, but it's progress. And if it had been left as it was, then we'd be in a mess, wouldn't we? People wouldn't be able to attend matches because of the health and safety issues.
There's also obviously benefits happening around the stadium as well, which we discussed yesterday. Obviously, the O2 suite's it used to be the hospitality before the North Stand. That's been, I think, a Twitter picture on Twitter came out, they've been fully gutted. They're having that as like a breakfast and then dinner. There's all the players and for the team meeting, so they can actually be together at the ground, eat, and then have the meetings there, and then go and train in the afternoon, like say in the gym. So that's another big step forward they're seeing there. Right. And then on the call, they did bring it up to about the purchase of the OEC, and regarding that, and they said that they will be taking it over, and all the income will be going to OASC now.
Yeah. Oh, they also talked about resurfacing Little Wembley, didn't they?
Yeah, the pitch. He said that they said that in the summer the pitch was dead at Chapel Road. They need irrigation, that sort of, and then the pitch again. It needs work on it. They're looking at funding for that. So there's quite a lot being put in place, which obviously minor things which the fans don't see. That and the bigger picture is helping us to get to the aim. And they said what the aim was, weren't it? Is to get out of this league.
Yeah, to win football matches. But I mean, like, I can vouch, Chapel Road's just over there, and that pitch the grass was completely dead. It was all brown, and Darren said that the pitch does need relaying. We know that the groundsman does a great job, but he said that underneath it's
you could see it the other day on Saturday.
It cuts up easily
because it had rained recently. Every time someone slid on it or moved on it, you can see the top layer just shearing off, and that's just going to continue.
So there's lots of investments that need to go into the club over the next 12 months, 36 months, whatever. And obviously, part of that is obviously on the playing side of things. But there's our business plan has to be put in place. For me, I said on the call last night, it's hard to believe it's only 3 months really, because it feels like a lot longer. Like, it really does. It feels like they've been, but it's only a relatively short space of time. So, in terms of, like I said, we will be having monthly meetings with the board. Well, not with the board, but with Darren and hopefully with members of the board along the way. And we'll be trying to develop a close working relationship. And obviously Darren will be on the actual club board. So it's just so nice to be seen and heard.
No, I mean, they did update us on the playing side of things as well. It's very low level update, but it was there's been no scouting structure in place at the club whatsoever. So they're appointing a team of scouts, obviously, and a head of recruitment, and they have been speaking to players, but it's convincing them to move. It's convincing them to move to this club. If players are in our league come January, they might be expecting a move up to the EFL. If players are in the EFL, they might not want to drop down at this point. They might want to see what their options are in January. So I can understand why they might be struggling.
Yeah, I think what we got from yesterday, I said we didn't really talk on the playing side of things. I think what we all got from there is budget there. Would you all agree that that was the thing we said, that there is budget there for players to come in?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess part of it is about making the club a more attractive proposition across all boards for players as well. So things like the suite being refurbished, so that's like a hub for them to sort of go into in the morning, and it feels professional and doesn't feel like they're being stuck in a room somewhere. Whilst it's not going to bring someone in that's expecting a high salary that we might perhaps aren't willing to pay or can afford to pay. It does help, if it's picking between us and another club. It's that sort of thing, isn't it? It's making us an attractive prospect in all areas. So things like improving the changing rooms and the facilities and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely reputational damage from the past, which won't just heal overnight. But what they said, one of the things that they said last night was, they have to make longer term decisions. There's short term thinking is not going to work, is it? There needs to be an infrastructure in place in order to make things better. And I think the reason we're saying this is that I personally agree with that way of thinking. I don't think that coming in and throwing loads of money at playing budget and maybe paying over the odds for players and paying too much wage demands would necessarily get us out of the division if the infrastructure of the club isn't right in the first place. So they have to make those calls, and personally I think that that's a sensible approach. Obviously, I'm hoping that through the season we'll make some signings and we'll improve drastically on the pitch, because I was at Altrincham on Tuesday and it was awful, but I don't think there's any need to panic at this stage. Yeah,
I think another update which we had as well, we talked a bit about communication. Obviously, there's not been much from on the official website. I brought that up, and they said that if you want to hear from the board members, you can see that on the programme. Each board member does write in the programme about what's going on, and we did get them to commit to a fan forum. We are looking to get that penciled in the new year. So I think that is something which probably be held at the OEC. And we don't know who would attend on there, but it would be club officials. More than likely be Darren and Peter, and don't know who else. But
we discussed a couple. We said one in the new year and possibly one post season. So we've got medium term plans where the club have committed to put people forward to discuss things with us. And that's way more than we could have said a year ago.
The other thing is we're not like we are going to push to get the things that we feel as an organisation we're entitled to, and as a fan base we deserve. And I'm not saying that we're going to need to, but it's not just a case of asking and then being quiet for 6 months. And we want to be working with the club on a regular basis on behalf of our members. And so we're going to drive that. We're not just going to sit around waiting for the club, because the other thing is the club are going to be, they're very, very busy, and there's limited people actually doing that amount of work. So we will keep going, and we will try and develop that relationship, and we'll work hard to make sure that it happens. And all the early signs are really good, aren't they? So I think we're drawing to a close, and I think we should draw to a close on positives, because I think really, if you think about it, for those who attended last year's AGM to this year's AGM, I know it's very different in terms of participation, but we asked fans for questions, and we only had one person sending a load of questions. Nobody else really asked us questions, and I'm going to take that as a positive. Feel free to contact us and let us know if that's different. But I'm hoping that you are all feel informed, and you feel that we've communicated well with you, and you're happy with the way things are going. Because I think we are now. I think we've settled into this, and we're really excited about the next year. Yeah,
I agree, and I think if you see us around the ground on match days or wherever, come and have a chat with us. Always, all of us are there most games, aren't we? Certainly home games, and we're always willing to chat. So.
Yeah, and also if you have any concerns, do get in touch with us, like our email, put us on Twitter. We do pick it up and we do discuss it between ourselves. We might not respond straight away. We might have to take it away to the board and discuss it between ourselves. But we will come back to you. And if there is anything you want to like raise concerns, like you've got the fans council. You go to the person there. The fans council. They're in contact with the board as well if it is a certain issue which is specific to one of the groups, or you just want to discuss anything. We can certainly put it to the board, like we did yesterday.
Definitely.
Yeah, I will ask that. With you saying get in touch, Brad, I will ask that people don't. If they want to ask us something, please try not to ask it in a response to a comment on Twitter. Rather, message us or email us.
Or you could text us if you actually have our number already.
Yeah, some people have got our number. Text us, and any way that's going to get directly to us, because I'm not always signed into our Twitter. And I'm pretty sure everybody else isn't. So
I'm always on Twitter, as you
know.
Yeah, I just think it's better if people contact us through the proper channels.
Oh yeah,
rather than because if we miss a comment, it doesn't look good, does it?
Yeah.
So
no, but it's not. Again, it's not the appropriate place necessarily.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if we're going to wrap it up, I'd like to just finish by thanking everybody who's given us support over the last year. I'd like to thank everybody who's been who's become a member, everybody who's voted, everybody who's fundraised, everybody who's done their bit over this last year, and just encourage every single one of those people to remember that this is a long-term project. It's not all over because we've got good local ownership. We still have to focus on years ahead.
Yeah.
And create the football club that we want in our image, because if we just sit back and disengage, anything can happen. Anything can happen again, because there's no guarantees, is there at all?
Look at what happened this time. I mean, the previous, the trust, when it was the trust, spent all the money that they got, gave it to the owners, didn't do any preparation, and then it hit the fan, and they weren't prepared. We don't want to be in that position again. It's obviously not going to happen now. But it might happen in a couple of years, it might happen in 10 years, it might happen in 20 years. But do you want to be doing what we did last year again if it does happen again, or do you want to be ready? It's a simple question.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hopefully a simple answer.
Yeah. And you know what? There's a lot of opportunity for engagement, building community, getting to know each other, and getting rid of a lot of the negativity that's been around the football club. That is something that I think the Fans Council and us, that's one of our key objectives. We want Oldham Athletic to be a positive place to be, and to be winning matches, at least for a bit. Do you know what I mean? At least for a bit. No one expects it forever, but at least let's just have a bit of a run of it again, where we all enjoy it. We feel part of something, and I think that what we saw towards the end of the Lemskin era and like the fans match and everything that's happened at the beginning of the takeover is that there's a real appetite for that. And if we stick together and we keep working hard, we can achieve it. Absolutely, 100%.
Well said.
Yep.
Jim?
Thanks, everyone.
I think that's everything. I think if you've got any questions, please do drop us an email, hello@oasf.co.uk. That's the most monitored form of contact that we've got. Or fill in the web form. It goes to the same email address anyway, so it doesn't matter. And thank you, everybody. Thanks for your support. Thanks for signing up. Thanks for your volunteering.
Thanks. See you again.